I will present you the MRV capacity building approach, which is an approach developed by the CBS program to promote the use of biodiversity data for decision making. So the CBS program is based at the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences and financed by the Belgian Development Corporation. It provides capacity building to partners of the Belgian Development Corporation, mainly in the field of conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity and ecosystem services. We work in the framework of Belgian international commitments, such as the CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity. So the MRV approach tries to bridge the gap between science and policy. And MRV stands for Measuring, Reporting, and Verification of Biodiversity. What is our approach? We see the link between decision makers and scientists as illustrated here. So decision makers express their needs in terms of biodiversity data, and scientists have the capability to turn data into trends that should be then communicated to decision makers. They can then report on biodiversity strategies and plans and adapt policies and legislations. But in many of our partner countries, we found issue at several steps of the schemes regarding data, for example, the lack of data, their poor quality, or the fact that they are rarely interpreted to define trends. The communication is also very poor between scientists and decision makers, and reporting is rarely based on scientific data. So our approach is about different steps of the schemes, as I will show you now. So what we propose to our partners is to submit a common MRV project with two partners, one partner for the scientific aspect, the left side of the scheme, one partner for the policy aspect, the right side of the scheme. Since 2015, we launched 5 calls for projects. We separate the French-speaking and English-speaking partner countries in order to have more efficient workshops and exchanges during project implementation. We focused on specific subjects related to the sustainable use of natural resources, and the objectives of those projects is thus to develop policy-relevant biodiversity indicators. Before the project starts, we organize a formulation and training workshops where the participants have the opportunity to present their pre-projects. They then have training about different thematics linked to the MRV approach, such as the science policy interface, biodiversity governance, online data portals that exist. And these are provided by CBIOS, but also by African experts. Then each group, each project has the opportunity to work with the expert to improve their proposals and then share the new proposals to the group and discuss things to ameliorate. So we believe such workshops are very powerful to promote South-South cooperation between the partners and also with the experts. And it's a good opportunity to exchange experience and build a network. After the project ends, they last 1 or 2 years, we organize closing workshops where, of course, the projects are presented, best practices are exchanged, and we provide training about communication towards different target groups and also about the creation of policy briefs. During the workshop, we co-create 2 types of publications so far, policy briefs and scientific papers to share lessons learned, recommendations, and the key results of the project. Here is the paper that was published after the first call of projects in 2015. A general request of the participant was to conduct follow-up projects in order to share their results and to raise awareness about the thematic of their projects or to the local population or to the authorities in the research area. This can be made with different means, for example, developing posters, organizing information session, etc. An important tool, we think, is the policy brief. So we developed several of them during the workshops, but also they were created by our partners themselves. We believe there are strong tools to give key messages in a simple and visual way, but the dissemination strategy is very important in order to really reach the person we want to reach. So we don't need to just print it, it should be really communicated and shared in an appropriate way. I will now focus on the DR Congo. It is one of our main partner countries, and it has very high potential in terms of biodiversity conservation. It is a very biodiverse and huge country, and there are many research institutes with very active, dynamic scientific community and many data. So we organized 2 big workshops in the country with scientists from all over the countries and also some decision makers and NGOs. And we discussed, for example, by the way of World Cafe, different thematics links to the policy relevant monitoring of biodiversity in the country. So how can scientists impact decision making? What are breaks to obtain reliable scientific data, etc. Some of the challenges that were identified is the lack of long-term monitoring systems. What are the reasons? First, regarding the use and sharing of data, so the lack of data exchange among scientists, but also between scientists and decision makers. Scientists are often afraid that their data will be misused. A weak mobilization of existing data, it's always about collecting new ones. There is no global approach, no long-term research vision in the institutes themselves or even at the national level. Regarding funding, there is a lack of financial means for large-scale and long-term data collection. So scientists go from one funding opportunity to the other and may change of field very quickly, which is not good for long-term monitoring, of course. The country does not attract donors as it is seen as unstable and is not very competitive in the international stage. And also, there is no harmonization of data collection methods and weak data quality. So what were the barriers identified for obtaining reliable scientific data? It's the lack of capacities regarding data collection, processing, and analysis, the lack of collaboration among scientists, the lack of adequate equipment, infrastructures, and dedicated laboratories, and the lack of accessibilities to international data banks or portals. This due to the language, internet issues, or software availability. Also, issues of the material for data archiving, leading to the loss of many data, and the lack of skills in database management. The recommendation that were made, mainly for the science policy interface, is that efforts to improve collaboration at this interface should be made on both sides. It may be about data sharing. It may be about organizing more common meetings, inviting the other part in our meetings, or even conducting ad hoc common projects together. The role of scientists, he should stimulate more the political interest. He has a role of monitoring and alert, giving key and captivating messages. He should also create information mechanisms such as being involved in environmental committees or visit regularly the local authorities, etc. More cooperation would help to broaden and share the expertise, but also to jointly address decision makers with a common voice of several researchers together. That is more powerful. Increasing their understanding of the needs of decision makers is also key. And decision makers are not only from the environmental sector, as biodiversity is cross-sectoral, other sectors such as mining, energy, agriculture are also very important. So general conclusions and lessons learned, biodiversity indicators are good communication tools toward decision makers. They are synthetic, visual, and easy to understand, but the concept is still insufficiently understood, and there are no structure responsible for the recurrent calculation of the indicator. These lessons learned are not only for Congo, they are more general. Also, indicators are not adapted to all contexts. For example, traditional knowledge, it's very hard to develop indicators for this. For many Central African countries, they have a very high potential, so very biodiverse, high motivation, but they are left behind in terms of biodiversity monitoring, especially with regards to global initiatives. And they also have no access to international efforts such as online data portals. The capacity building needs we identified, mainly the indicator concept itself, database management, sharing data, accessing online data, and these are aspects we will try to address by submitting projects to the bid call of the JBIF together with some partner countries. And we think it's important to promote the mobilization of existing data, triangular cooperation, so not just North-South, but really involve South expertise and South-South cooperation. The tandem approach science policy, so involving both scientists and policymakers in the same project, was really appreciated by our partners. And we believe that research topics offered by grants or funded projects should really be based on the research agenda of the country in order to achieve more results. And also strategies for sustainability after the project ends is also key. I thank you very much.